Hello guys, and welcome to my review of the second Naked Gun film, The Naked Gun 2.5, The Smell of Fear. So the plot of this movie is basically about Lieutenant Frank Drebin, again played by Leslie Nielsen, trying to stop the villain Hapsberg, who's played by Robert Goulet. And Robert Goulet was actually a guest star in one of the episodes of Police Squad, actually. Basically, they're trying to stop because he plans on kidnapping this scientist named Dr. Meinheimer, who's played by Richard Griffiths, who you might know. Richard Griffiths was the uncle in the Harry Potter films. And Richard Griffiths actually plays two characters in this film. He plays Dr. Meinheimer, and he also plays one of Hapsberg's henchmen, who basically, because they look alike, they're going to kidnap Dr. Meinheimer and make his look-alike pretend to be him, and and also in between the sequels, Frank and Jane have split up, and in this movie they basically get back together. And can I say, does anyone else really hate when they do this? Like, when in between sequels, when the first movie has a romance, and then in between sequels they break up, and it's just so they can have them get back together again in the sequel. Does anyone else really hate when they do that? They did it with Ghostbusters 2 as well, even Airplane 2 as well. With that said and done though, this is still just a hilarious movie again, just like the first one. I think the third one is a bit worse. It's still a great film, the third one, but I'd say the first two are very consistent. The first two are probably equally as good as each other. I mean, we just have hilarious bit, the sex scene in this. It's just hilarious, just like the condom scene in the first one. And the interesting thing is the sex scene in this, when they're making a clay pot. It's a parody of the movie Ghost, which Ghost was of course directed by Jerry Zucker, who's one of the team behind this, who's David Zucker's brother. And and I saw it in the trailer for this movie. They showed the clay pot scene, which is a parody of the movie Ghost, and it says, "From the director of Ghost's brother," and then it pans out and you see Leslie Nielsen, and it's just hilarious. And there's a scene in this that I think might have inspired a scene in Johnny English. There's a scene where it's the real Dr. Meinheimer, but Frank thinks that it's the imposter. And basically, the real Dr. Meinheimer has a birthmark on his ass. And basically, Frank shows Dr. Meinheimer's ass to the audience to prove that he's a fake. But he does actually have the birthmark there, because it is the real one. And I think that kind of might have inspired the Archbishop scene in Johnny English, when and I will say one of my favourite bits is when Frank is at their party, and Hapsberg says, "I don't remember seeing your name on the guest list," and then Frank says, "Nothing to be embarrassed by, I sometimes go by my maiden name." And that's just hilarious. And I love the opening scene in the White House when he's having dinner with the president and his wife. It was George H.W. Bush, George Bush Sr., who was president at the time this movie came out. And you see George H.W. Bush walking down with Barbara Bush, and then Frank comes out of the toilet and then opens the door in Barbara Bush's face. And there's a hilarious bit where in the meeting he's trying to open up a lobster shell, and it's just hilarious, and he pulls it open and then hits Barbara Bush, and he's trying to get the lobster open, and then the lobster claw grabs the commissioner's tit. It's just hilarious, really. and we get a lot more of Nordberg, and of course, I know, of course, O.J. Simpson is a terrible person, but I've come, I really like seeing the characters of Frank, Ed, and Nordberg working together in this film. I like the versions of them in the movies better than in the TV show, and you get a lot more of Nordberg in this one, because in the first one he was in a coma for most of the movie, and O.J. Simpson, as much of a terrible person as he is, he's really great in these movies. And I have to say, another hilarious bit was when Frank says to Ed, because Ed's wife is named Edna, he says, "Congratulations, I hear Edna's pregnant again." And then Ed says, "Yes, and if I find the guy who did it." That's just a hilarious scene. So yes, overall, The Naked Gun 2.5, The Smell of Fear is just a hilarious sequel, just as funny as the first one. Would highly recommend it if you haven't seen it for some reason. And yeah, see you later and bye.